All right, so good afternoon. Thank you very much to the organizers, to IDB, the Financial and Stability and Financial Network for the opportunity of presenting our research in this event. As Victoria already told you, this is a joint work with Alex Carrasco. And as usual, the standard disclaimer for central bankers applies. So let me go straight forward. This is a paper about the impact of external shocks over financial and macroeconomic variables on emerging market economies and the role that FX interventions may have in responding to external shocks, to these types of shocks. As we know, external shocks shape capital flows and exchange rate dynamics in emerging markets economies, affect directly the availability of external funds and domestic financial conditions, and also affect currency, any potential currency mismatch that different agents may present in this type of economies. Regarding the policy practice, many central banks in emerging economies, most of them, or some of them inflation targeters, responded to this or responded to this type of events or these external shocks by deploying a policy mix, FX intervention, besides their standard policy rate instrument. Central banks in emerging market economies deployed a policy mix associated to FX interventions, macroprudential measures, capital controls, differentiated reserve requirements, and so on. But this paper is we are going to focus on FX interventions. So there are three questions that we want to answer in this paper. The first one is try to map the mechanism through which FX intervention affect the response of emerging markets to external shocks. The second question is related to understand if FX interventions are effective in stabilizing the impact of external shocks over financial conditions and business cycles. And the third one is related, is trying to study if FX interventions are welfare improving when compared to exchange rate flexibility. What do we do in this paper? We built a new Keynesian model for a commodity exporting small open economy with financial frictions in the domestic banking sector. This small open economy, the central bank at this small open economy is an inflation targeting with two active monetary policy instruments, a nominal interest rate and an FX intervention rule that I'm going to talk in a few slides. And also our baseline model, the benchmark model, has financial dollarization in it. Savings and loans are denominated into currencies. In our model, the agents who save in deposits as deposits with banks are households, and intermediate good producers are going to borrow, must borrow in advance in order to be able to produce. They need loans, and these loans are denominated also into currencies, in foreign currency and in domestic currency. We discipline the model, at least a subset of the parameter space, with a limited information approach, that is an IRF matching estimator, between an estimated structural VAR using Peruvian data in this case, and identify with block exogeneity, between the SVAR and the model economy. Just to let you know, the SVAR is identified as a small open economy. It has an exogenous block of external variables such as global GDP, international or foreign interest rates, and commodity price index for the Peruvian economy in this case, and also has a domestic block with several macroeconomic variables. And the identifying assumption is, of course, that the domestic block does not affect the external block at any point in time. And also what we do is try to explore the effectiveness of FX intervention policy to mitigate the impact of external shocks in terms of macroeconomic volatility and welfare analysis. In particular, what we do is search for optimal simple rules for the two instruments that this central bank has, under a second order approximation for the welfare function and the equations that characterize the general equilibrium. So first, just to put everybody in the same page, the definition that we use of FX interventions in the model. First, the central bank buys or sells official FX reserves, dollars in this case, with the banking system in exchange for domestic currency denominated assets, but in a way that completely offsets any change in the supply of domestic liquidity by using domestic bonds that are issued by the central bank. This is the sterilization leg of any FX intervention operation that I'm going to talk about inside our model economy. These domestic bonds that are issued by the central bank are denominated in domestic currency. So what are the main results of our framework? In our framework, FX interventions are modeled as a non-conventional monetary policy tool. That means that FX interventions are neutral or not effective when agents are not constrained in their ability to borrow. This means that whenever financial constraints or financial frictions are not binding, then FX intervention is neutral. And FX interventions are non-neutral or effective whenever agents are constrained to borrow, when the financial constraints are binding. In our model, limits to borrow emerge from two sources of financial frictions. The first one is for banks. Banks face an agency problem that constrains their ability to obtain funds. Banks are going to obtain funding from domestic households and from international financial markets or international credit lines. In both cases, these funds are denominated in domestic currency and foreign currency. And then there is a second source of financial friction, which is that since households are able to save in both types of currencies, we are going to assume that they cannot engage in complete arbitrage. So we assume that households face transaction costs when saving in foreign currency. So the main idea is that these types of limits to arbitrage, both for banks and for households, are going to induce interest rate spreads in equilibrium. In particular, we are going to see that there are endogenous deviations to UIP equations. In our model, there are going to be two UIP equations, one for banks, one for households, that do not hold with equality. They depend on several variables, and that means that there are endogenous deviations to UIP, and that means that FX interventions are not neutral in terms of smoothing out the dynamics of the exchange rate. What are the mechanisms at play in our model? We have identified two. One is the exchange rate smoothing. That means that FX intervene whenever there are endogenous deviations to UIP. FX interventions are able to smooth out the response of the real exchange rate to external shocks. Everything here is conditional to external shocks. And then there is a second mechanism at play, which is a balance sheet substitution channel that we call, that is associated to the sterilization leg of FX intervention. As I have already told you, every time that there is an FX intervention policy as a response to an external shock in the model, the central bank is going to completely sterilize the effect over domestic liquidity that the FX operation have. This sterilization leg is going to be related to, for example, selling or buying central bank bonds from the private banks' balance sheet. Since banks face an agency problem, and this agency problem is binding every time, this also has an effect over macroeconomic variables. So in our framework, there are also some interesting results. How could FX intervention be less effective in our framework? That is the case without financial dollarization. We also analyze a case where there is no financial dollarization. Bank deposits and loans are only denominated in domestic currency, but this continues to be a small open economy that face several external shocks. In this case, FX interventions are non-neutral, but are less effective than in the case where the economy has financial dollarization. And how could FX intervention be neutral in our framework? The direct answer is when financial constraints do not bind. If financial constraints do not bind, FX interventions are not neutral. But in our framework, even when financial frictions bind, FX interventions might be neutral or close to neutral. That is when the UIP condition, any of the two UIP conditions, hold with equality, when there are no endogenous deviations of UIP. In that case, FX interventions are neutral with respect to real exchange rate dynamics, but there is still an effect of the balance substitution channel associated to the sterilization leg of FX interventions that may affect macroeconomic variables. In our quantitative exercise, that effect is small compared to the smoothing of real exchange rate. So let me talk a little bit about the model. This is the standard bank's balance sheet in the model. In the liability side, domestic bank deposits are denominated in foreign and domestic currency. As I have already told you, households save in terms of bank deposits in both currency, D and D*H. D is for domestic households deposits in pesos. D*H are household deposits, bank deposits in dollars or in foreign currency. But banks also borrow from abroad, from international investors, creditors in foreign currency. That is D*F. N is the net worth of the bank. And on the asset side, banks provide funding to intermediate good producers. Remember that the only agents that need funding or that need loans are intermediate good producers. And we assume that intermediate good producers must borrow in advance from banks to acquire capital for production. But these producers need a combination of domestic currency and foreign currency loans. Those are denoted by L and L*. E, small e, in the balance sheet is the real exchange rate. And also, part of a fraction of the bank assets in the model are made of central bank bonds, which is a small b in the asset side of the balance sheet, which are issued by the central bank in order to do sterilization operations. So the bank faces an agency problem, as I have already told you, that constrains banks' ability to obtain funds from its creditors. As it is usual in this literature, we assume that bank managers will abscond funds if the amount they are capable to divert exceeds their continuation value, which in equation 1 is V here. Equation 1 is the incentive compatibility constraint that a banker faces. So this continuation value, in order to be able to obtain funds, this continuation value must be greater or equal than this right-hand side. What is the right-hand side of equation 1? Is the fraction of weighted assets that the banker is able to divert. We assume that the fraction, which is capital theta, depends on a measure of foreign currency balance sheet position of the bank or currency mismatch, which is depicted in equation 2. In the numerator, this small x, which is currency mismatch or the foreign currency balance sheet position of the bank, in this case, of an individual case, of an individual bank. In the numerator, we have the difference between total liabilities in dollars and total assets in dollars, expressed, of course, transformed to pesos or to domestic currency as a fraction of total assets. We also assume that some assets are going to be more difficult to divert than others. For example, in our calibration, we target different spreads for the Peruvian economy. And we find out that, for example, this omega v that appears in equation 1 is very close to 0, in contrast to omega star, which is higher than 1, for example. That means that in our calibration, central bank bonds are much harder to divert than than loans in foreign currency. So one of the main assumptions that we have is that the severity of the bank's agency problem, this capital theta here, depends directly on a measure of currency mismatch. So that means that a higher X, because of an external shock that increases the real exchange rate, for example, implies that bankers are able to divert a higher fraction of their assets. This means this worsens the severity of the incentive compatibility constraint, or this worsens the agency problem that bankers face, and at the end is going to tighten financial conditions for the economy. So, as I have already told you, in our model, there are going to be endogenous deviations to UIP appear in general equilibrium. This is the UIP equation for banks, the equation number 3, and equation number 4 is the UIP equation for households. Each of these equations are related to the financial friction that we are assuming. For example, in the case of equation 3, which is the deviation of UIP for banks, it depends on two main assumptions that we have. Lambda B, here in blue, is the multiplier associated to the incentive compatibility constraint. That means if this is 0, UIP conditions hold with equality, and FX interventions are neutral for the general equilibrium. But then there is another term, which is the term in red, which is a partial elasticity of the fraction of assets that the bankers can divert with respect to currency mismatch. That means that if this X here is measured at the individual level, this is going to be different from 0. And there is going to be a UIP deviation. But what happens if, for example, in the incentive compatibility constraint, this X is a measure of the industry, a currency mismatch measure at the industry level? Then bankers are going to take X as given, and this derivative here is going to be 0, and we are again in the case of no UIP deviation. UIP is going to hold with equality. In this case, FX intervention are neutral in terms of smoothing out the response of the real exchange rate. The same happens if households have no transaction cost when savings, with respect to their deposits in foreign currency at banks. If this parameter kappa D, which is a measure of the degree of the transaction costs over dollar deposits, household dollar deposits at banks, if this KD goes to 0, then equation 4, the UIP is going to hold with equality. So we need just one of these two to hold with equality in order to have FX interventions being neutral with respect to the exchange rate. So, I would like to say that if the UIP holds with equality, FX interventions are almost neutral for aggregate variables, because there is quantitatively, there is going to be an effect that is related to this balance sheet substitution channel, or which is ultimately associated to the sterilization process. So let me finish this part before going to the results with the central bank and FX intervention policy. The sterilization procedure is in equation 5. Let F be the amount of official FX reserves and B the central bank bonds used for sterilization purposes. Equation 5 is also the balance sheet of the central bank. So the sterilization procedure is completely equivalent to the central bank balance sheet in this simple framework that I am presenting right now. Again, there is also a cost of intervention. We have two types of cost of intervention costs in the model. The first one is the operational losses associated to a quasi-fiscal deficit. We know that F, that is official FX reserves, are invested abroad at an external interest rate, while B, which are the sterilization bonds that central bank issue, are pay a domestic interest rate, which is denoted here by RB. Since every time that RB is lower than the domestic currency, than R star expressed in domestic currency, any central bank bond or sterilization operations are going to produce central bank operational losses. But we also add a different cost in order for the welfare analysis that I'm going to show you. This additional welfare cost is a kind of adjustment cost for sterilization. Every time that the central bank sterilizes an FX intervention operation, there is going to be an adjustment cost that is going to be also reflected in the central bank operational losses or quasi-fiscal deficit. In the baseline model, this extra cost is going to be zero. Only for some part of the welfare analysis, we are going to study a range of this tau fx here that we don't know what is the value of this. And then we have an FXI intervention rule, an FX intervention rule in terms of the central bank bonds that are used for sterilization purposes. So for example, if there are appreciation pressures, this appreciation pressure is going to yield an accumulation of F in exchange of domestic liquidity. That's an accumulation of FX reserves. And sterilization requires to withdraw the additional domestic liquidity by allocating B to domestic banks. The FX intervention rule, we are writing it in terms of B instead of F, but it's exactly the same as you see because of equation 5. So let me talk about some quantitative results. First,
you have 6 minutes left.
Okay, thanks. So first, the model does a good job in matching the input responses of the structural VAR. We estimate around 10 parameters with this input response matching. One of them is this VE that is here in the FX intervention rule. And I am just telling you this because it's really important for the welfare analysis. So in our model, we estimate this elasticity of the FX intervention rule with respect to real exchange rate deviations in the steady state using this input response matching here. And there are different parameters such as adjustment cost of investments, AVID persistence, and so on. But among the parameters that we estimate with input response matching, there is this response of the FX intervention rule to exchange rate deviations. So first, in terms of macroeconomic volatilities, conditional on external shocks, remember everything is conditional on external shocks in the model, FX intervention significantly reduce aggregate volatility. FER is the flexible exchange rate regime, where this VE here in the FX intervention rule is zero. So the central bank only operates with the Taylor rule, with a standard Taylor rule. In terms of real exchange rate, the volatility under flexible exchange rate is around 5.5, and with FX intervention, this volatility is reduced to 2.1. And the same is happening with investment. If you see, there is a huge, our parameterization and simulation of the model yields a really high investment volatility under flexible exchange rates, and with FX intervention, it is reduced to 5% in terms of standard deviations. And the same for different macroeconomic variables such as GDP, total credit, consumption, and so on. So, let me tell you about commodity price shock. What is happening at commodity price shock? Let's focus first on the green line. The green line is the flexible exchange rate regime. So whenever there is a persistent increase in commodity prices, there is going to be an important appreciation of the real exchange rate, as we see in the green line here. The appreciation at impact is very close to 5% under flexible exchange rates. So, and this is going to affect directly currency mismatch. The currency mismatch of the banking system decreases, and this is going to increase net worth. And of course, this is going to generate a credit boom. What we see here in total credit that increases. So we have a commodity boom, an increase in commodity prices that produces a persistent increase in total credit. So financial conditions amplify the commodity boom in our model. And this is, of course, going to be reflected in an economic expansion of GDP, investment, and consumption. When FX interventions are active, let's focus now on the orange lines. First, the real exchange rate dynamics change with respect to the green line. The appreciation, there is still an appreciation, but the appreciation on impact is smaller than under the FX intervention, than under the flexible exchange rate regime. But also, agents are going to expect depreciations. There is a ham-shaped, FX interventions generate a ham-shaped response of real exchange rate, in contrast with what we observe with the flexible exchange rate regime. This is going to affect financial variables such as currency mismatch and the degree of the financial constraint that banks face, and also is going to shape net worth. And total credit is going to be smoothed out. So FX intervention for this external shock, for an increase in commodity price, for a commodity price shock, smooth the response of credit, of total credit in this economy. And this, of course, is going to be reflected in a moderate expansion of GDP, investment, and consumption.
1 minute.
So, okay, so just let me jump to welfare analysis. So the question is if FX interventions are welfare improving or not. Here we fix the parameter of the Taylor rule with respect to inflation in 1.5, which is a standard in many macro models, and we compute the welfare gain relative to our baseline calibration of the model. This is the baseline regime compared to an alternative regime. In the alternative regime, we search for different values of the response of FX interventions to exchange rate. So what we observe here is if there are no FX interventions, VE is equal to 0, there is going to be a welfare loss of around 4% in terms of baseline consumption. If we start increasing VE, this welfare loss is going to be reduced, and is going to be a maximum of it between a response of FX interventions around 25 and 30. Okay, that's the optimal degree. In this case, we don't have these additional costs for sterilization. for the sterilization process. But what happens if we include those costs? Remember that I was telling you, and with this I'm going to finish, that we also add adjustment costs of FX interventions that are reflected in central bank operation losses. So if we see this quadrant here, the left-hand side quadrant, we see there are different range of this tau parameter here that goes from 0 to 500 and we observe that the optimal FX policy response is going to start decreasing. If there are no adjustment costs of sterilization or FX intervention, the optimal degree of FX policy response is between 25 and 30 here. In our model, according to our estimation, according to the IRF matching, this value is around 10, okay? But if we start increasing the elasticity or the partial elasticity of this shock, of this adjustment cost of FX interventions, of course, the optimal FX policy response, the parameter VE, is going to start decreasing, okay? And in terms of the welfare loss, this curve here, this red curve here is the welfare loss, but multiplied by, but in positive terms, is also going to decrease. If there are no adjustment costs of FX interventions, there is going to be a welfare loss of not of having a flexible exchange rate regime of 5%. And if we start increasing this adjustment cost, what we are going to see, for example, if we increase from 0 to 500, we are going to end up with a welfare loss of a lower welfare loss of almost 1.5% of consumption in the baseline model. So what we are trying to say here is that depending on tau, welfare losses are going to be welfare losses of not having FX intervention or of having a flexible exchange rate regime is going to be between 1.5 and 5% of consumption in our baseline model. So I'm going to stop here and just summarize very quickly. FX interventions successfully reduce the impact of external shocks according to our baseline model. There are significant reduction of macroeconomic volatility conditional to external shocks, and there is a significant welfare loss under exchange rate flexibility. Another important lessons that we got from our paper is that FX interventions might be neutral in terms of real exchange rate dynamics, even when the financial constraint for banks does not bind. So that's everything that I wanted to share with you.